Guitars with David Starr. Today's special guest is the legendary Dan Dugmore. We're here at Addiction Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm working on one of my projects. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
A lot of you may know Dan from his early work with Linda Ronstadt, James Taylor, and numerous other artists, and he's been a Nashville staple for how many years? How long have you been in Nashville?
28 years now.
How long?
28 years.
28. Okay. So name some folks that you play with that are a little more current than Linda and James.
Martina McBride and
Right.
Tim McGraw and Trisha Yearwood and
Okay.
geez, all kinds of people.
Right.
Let's see, Dirk Bentley,
Right.
Brett Eldridge.
You were going to be
just
working.
Miranda Lambert, who just did her new record.
Cool. And then Dave Stewart, you got a project coming up with him.
Got a new one coming up with him. We've done them for about the past 10, 15 years, been doing records with him.
See, I never would have put that on my radar when I think of the kind of stuff you do, but you're real innovative on a steel and certainly on that Les Paul.
Right.
One of the things that we do on this little series, just talk about our axes and our cool guitars, and one you've let me play and one you've used on a couple of my projects is this old Les Paul. What can you tell us about it?
Well, this guitar is, I believe, the 1968 or 69. We're not quite sure.
Right.
But I got this guitar when I was on the road with Linda Ronstadt. I had a gold top that it was my only electric I had, and it got stolen at one of our gigs. And so they called ahead to promoters at the next gig and had them bring guitars for me to play. And they said, when you find one you like, we'll get it for you. So they kept coming with gold tops, and I didn't like any of them. And finally, about 2 weeks of this guy comes and says, I don't have any gold ones. You just have to use this black one. And I took it and I plugged it in at the sound check and hit one chord on it, and the whole band looked over at me, and I just went, I want this guitar. And what I realized is my gold tops, they all had P90 pickups, which were a single coil pickup.
Right.
And these guitars have humbucking pickups, which is a double coil. So it's two pickups within the one, and it bucks the hum by, they put them out of phase together, but they're much more powerful than the P90. So all of a sudden I'd never played with humbuckers before. As soon as I hit a chord, I was going, oh my God, this guitar was like so much louder and rings, and it actually is acoustically has a nice ring to it, like a lot, and all the time that comes through in the electricness.
Well, that's the thing I noticed earlier. We were talking. I picked it up and just strummed it unplugged, and it really has a sound to it. And a lot of people think an electric guitar is just strings and pickups, but there's some mojo about the wood. I mean,
it really is.
And that one really has it. Now, was the Bigsby on it when you got it?
No, it wasn't. It didn't have Bigsby, but this pick guard was. Whoever had it before me made this pick guard. And I think it must be some kind of, it's like where my fingers touch it, it's like the tarnish is worn off, but it used to be all this silver color, but now over the years, but where my fingers touch it, it still stays silver, but the rest is tarnished. And I imagine I could clean it up, but I just like it the way it is. It's just kind of
it always does my heart good when I come in and you've got that one with you.
This one's a very special guitar, and I used it on many records, and I used it touring with David Crosby, and moving here, I used it on songs like Martina McBride's "My Baby Loves Me the Way I Am," and some other stuff here. So it's just been really my favorite guitar. But luckily I got the gold one back a couple years later. The police recovered it, and so I do have that one back. But this one still sounds better than the gold one.
Well, I remember the first song you used that on my Beauty and Ruin project. We all were in the control room, and I think you had your head down just wailing on that thing, and it almost had a Neil Young Crazy Horse sort of thing, because you're playing, what amps are you using? They're in the other room there.
Yes, I have a 1960 Tweed Deluxe that I use for guitar and lap steel. And I'd switch out the speaker. I put in a Celestion Vintage 30 in there. And then I have a 1957 Tweed Pro that has a 15-inch JBL that I use for the steel because it's cleaner. And so just those two amps is about every sound I need. And then my old Echoplex here, I've had since the early 70s, and that's the one I used on Blue Bayou and all those records. And it went down on me, but luckily I got we found a guy here, Eric Borash, Ebo, who knows how to refurbish them, and he fixed it all up and put in tape in there that's a quieter tape. Those older tapes were very hissy and noisy.
Right.
So between that's my main setup.
Well, tell me a little about that pedal steel. Looks like a Show Pro.
This is a Show Pro, which was made for me by Dwayne Mars and Jeff Surratt, I believe around 2006. And Dwayne worked for Showbud, and Showbud stopped making guitars in the mid '80s, and so he decided it's sort of it's a not exact copy of but it's like a Showbud, the Showbud shape of the headstock they call the Gumby headstock, and so because there's no company to sue him anymore, he's allowed to use that. But the undercarriage is much better than the old Showbros. He's perfected all that, and when he was going to build it for me, I said I brought in my Sunburst Les Paul, and I said I want a steel guitar that looks like a Sunburst Les Paul, so they sunburst the steel for me, and then they usually put a pad on the back neck here. And once I saw this wood, I said, I don't want to put a pad on there. I'd rather look at the beautiful maple wood in the sunburst finish. So they left the pad off, and that's been a very sweet guitar.
Yeah. So that's an 8-string?
It's a 10-string.
10-string, excuse me. Yeah.
E9 tuning.
Okay.
And the other neck, which would be on here, would be a C6 neck. But that's in that Western swing tuning, and nobody wants that sound anymore. Every time I tried to even use it when I moved here, they just went, we don't want that old sounding steel. We want the modern steel.
That was Countrypolitan. They didn't want that.
And so it's a lot lighter than having a full double neck. And since I was never even using the other neck, but it is built on a double frame, which actually makes the sound a lot better, because you have all this wood resonating.
A lot of mass there.
A lot of mass. And the single necks that are only on that one size, and they don't have all this mass to resonate. And then plus the knee levers are pushed back here like on a double neck, so you're more comfortable sitting at it.
And you have a place to put your drinks.
You do.
Okay. Well, listen, Dan, thank you so much for spending time with us.
My pleasure.
We look forward to, maybe we'll catch up again and talk about that gold top. It's got a story all its own.
It does.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, David.